What's up, guys? This will be a breakdown of Yiheng's 4.03 world record 3x3 average. Now let's just go over all of the solutions, what was amazing about it, and what possibly could have went better potentially. Now, all the scrambles and reconstructions will be in the description along with the video, so be sure to check them out. So for the first solve, it's quite simple. It's just an RD gen cross into a 5-mover pair here. So he doesn't move this pair. He just leaves it where he is and does an RD gen cross. So R prime to solve the red cross edge opposite of orange, and then D prime R to insert the red one, sorry, the blue one, and then D2 R D to insert the green one. And then here he just does the red green pair by doing L prime U L2 U prime L prime. So he just takes it out and inserts it. Next he rotates and then pairs this pair up. But instead of just inserting with LU to L prime, he does U prime, then LU prime L prime. And the reason he does that is it pairs up the next pair. And then here, instead of just inserting the pair, which would either result in this or this, which aren't super good cases, he decides to just insert this pair first, which preserves this pair and also makes the third pair slightly more efficient, which is really nice for him. So yeah, that's what he did for F2L. But I do want to show something very interesting that he could have done that would have made it slightly better. So if you just did R prime F, R prime F prime R2, which is, the best solution to solve this pair, that would have also given him his EO, and he would be able to cancel into the pair. So like, just solve that, and then cancel into the pair, and then here he has a really nice ZBLL, which he does not know yet, but if he decides to learn ZBLL, that is how you would be doing it. But yeah, that's just a very cool solution that he could have done. I mean, he didn't do it, but he just did this. And then he had OLL and a UB perm. Whoops. So that's just this reconstruction for the first solve. Let's look at the second solve, which was a 381. First one was a 357. Okay, so for the second solve, he does a white cross. And this is a very interesting solution because instead of just doing a very efficient cross, he decides to actually do a pair up of the first pair by making the cross longer. And I do think it worked out ergonomically. So what he did was U, R prime, F to insert these two cross edges. And then here he does a D, U2 to set up this cross edge so he can insert to here, but not for just any reason, but because if he does that, it pairs up the blue and red pair. And he does just that. He does a UD prime, inserts the pair into the back, but he also cancels into solving this pair, which is very interesting. I would have probably seen this pair first, which I would have paired up like that into this pair, and then that would also result to another free pair, which would be pretty nice. But he didn't see that pair. He saw this pair first, so he canceled into the double sexy pair, which he solved first, and then he decided to do something very interesting. So here normally you would just pair that pair up and then insert the back pair, but he actually decided to do L prime UL, and then he sledged this pair because that will result in the free pair. And there's a slight improvement that could be done if you just cancel into S prime L fat F like this. But yeah, he just does a sledge and then rotates and then inserts the pair. And what was very interesting was he was able to cancel into OLL. So he looked ahead into the OLL, canceled into it, and then here he does the RB perm. So yeah, this was a very interesting solve with a slightly longer cross solution that resulted in a really nice continuation. So that was very cool. Now for the third solve, this was a 5.28. So yeah, he does a Z2 into, very interesting. Okay, so he does L, and that moves this pair, this cross edge in, but he doesn't actually just leave it there. He does a D prime and then L, so he can insert this in relation to that. And then now he has these two set up pretty well. But he doesn't just do like R, F prime, D, he does R, U prime. And the reason he does that is because this pair, R, U prime, F prime, that would pair up this pair. So he does a D and then U inserts the pair. So yeah, once again, I see that he's doing a lot of cross setups into free pairs, which is working really well for him. So what he does here is, okay, so this I would probably do a slight nitpick. So instead of doing R prime U R L U prime L prime, which doesn't seem to have a benefit here, it's way more finger trick friendly to do R prime U prime R L U L prime, like that, because you don't have to push twice or drag twice. So yeah, I would definitely do that instead. But R prime U R L U prime L prime. Then here, of course, he decides to do this pair. R U R prime U2 R U prime R prime. And then here's something interesting. So you could also do that, but that wouldn't be super good. But just note that generally, if you solve this pair first, and you won't have to rotate for the next pair because the edge is still oriented. But he does this pair, and then he rotates into this pair. So just solve it normally, and then that leaves this Ola. Okay, so for this Ola, you can actually do it from this angle, which would be slightly faster. Just a mirror inverse, something like that. But he does a U2 into this Ola, and then another U2 into the A perm. So yeah, he could have saved a few AUFs if he just did this OLL instead. But yeah, it's 5.28. And that happens to be the worst solve of the average. So for the next solve, a 3.32. Wow, so this is, according to some people, it is the fastest full step solve in WCA history. So he does an X2Y. And then here, this is very interesting because he does a pseudo cross. And, you know, like, I feel like what Timon would do actually, he would be able to find a way to insert this pair and make an X cross out of this, because I definitely see some block building potential here and be able to insert this pair. But what he does was D, L, D prime to just insert the cross edges, and then he does U2L prime. And that doesn't leave us with a cross, but that does solve a pseudo cross and also this free pair. So he does a U prime U, which is a hesitation, and then here, yeah, that's really smart. So what I would do here would just insert this pair and then cancel into that, but he finds something better actually. He does RE prime R2 prime UR, but that pairs up this pair, and he actually does U2 F prime, and then he does wide R U prime wide R prime to insert the cross edge and the pair. So that is very interesting. And next he does R U2 prime R prime U R U prime R prime. So wow, that was a very, very interesting solution where instead of trying to do something where the entire XX cross is made, he actually does a pseudo X cross, solves his second pair, and then finishes cross during the third pair. But all his pairs are super efficient. So that is very smart, and I think it should be, you know, free fop, pseudo cross, pseudo X cross should be something that is done all more often officially. But anyways, he does the OLL and T perm. So yeah, that was a very crazy solution where he does a pseudo cross into very efficient F2L, and then it's still full step, but it's a 3.32. So I'm really surprised that he was able to do a solution so complex and unorthodox in such a fast time. So now for the last solve, it was a 4.70. And the BPA was like 3.56 or something crazy. But anyways, he does an X2Y. And then, okay, this is actually yellow cross. So he does wide L2 to insert this cross edge next to this one. And then he does F to set up this cross edge so he can insert both of them with L2, F prime, L prime, and then he aligns the entire cross with a D prime. Now, first pair, of course, he just does this pair, R, U prime, R prime, U prime, L, U, L prime. Next, okay, so you could just keyhole this pair by doing D, R prime, U prime, R, D prime. And you can actually do a wide U prime to avoid rotation at the end, but he does R, U prime, R prime, U2, R, U prime, R prime. And honestly, the benefit of this is it's super spammable, and I would say it's even more reliable than keyhole because it's just 2-gen. And then next he rotates, solves this pair, and then of course he rotates to solve the last pair. And here I just wanted to note something that I notice Yiheng always tends to rotate to FL for the last pair when he has a situation like this. A lot of top cubers, they rotate the other way to do 2-gen from the back. But this is actually the best way to do it. Generally, if you have a choice for your last pair, rotating to BR versus rotating to FL, in a lot of situations, it's actually going to be faster to rotate to FL because there are no regrips for this one here. And if you're really good at lefty turning, which Yiheng is, it's actually better to rotate to FL most of the time. Now here he just does the OLL/COLL, and then he does the U-perm again, and yeah, he surprisingly seems to favor this alg over this alg, which most people seem to be doing. You can do that too, but yeah, surprisingly he seems to like this U-perm a lot more. And then that is it. So yeah, that was a very interesting average. I do think that the 3.32 was one of the most unique solves ever done that were that fast. So yeah, that was a very interesting average. Hope you enjoyed this analysis video and hope to see you next time. Thanks for watching.